this. Not now. After thousands of years, why now? I made sure. No. By the gods, no. If she uses her magic there. Damn! Renara, I'm coming. Quickly, this way.
Whoa, easy, girl. Wait, what in the hell's... Graham! What the hell are you doing?
She's not at the explosion site. She's at Anornu.
Where in the hells is that?
Magic hasn't been cast there since the old days. I made sure of it. God, how I wish for those days again. Whoa, careful now.
Oh, I had it. I'm just getting used to, being able to shoot elements out of my hands now.
And you've come a very long way from where you started. In a short space of time, no less. You will become a force to be reckoned with. I know it.
Oh, please. I've been doing this for weeks and I can barely keep a steady hold on anything I make. I'm more likely to burn these lands to the ground than aid them.
No, I mean it. You're stronger than you know. I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't warn you. This much power. You must be careful to use it wisely. Share its benefits with all, great and small. Be a force for good, no matter what happens around you. Lest you become like Gracchus, sadistic and twisted.
You have no need to fear. I will never become like him. And it will take more than he to break my will. I will be a healer and protector. I will be a guide to wayward adventurers and the force of nature. Should I bloody learn how to shoot a fireball correctly?
You already are a force of nature. But I'm glad to hear you say these things. Many mortals are too easily tainted by so much power.
You speak as if you've seen it happen.
There was one, once. A good man turned greedy lunatic. A damn shame, for he had so much potential. But he threw it all away in pursuit of power, and suffered the consequences.
Forgive me for asking. Do not think that I am ungrateful. Far from it. But I can't help but wonder. Why did you give it all up? Just to save me? I could end up being just like this man you speak of.
You are very different. I can feel the good in you. That's what made it clear that you did not deserve to suffer. The trials you have faced in life, they showed me that you know what it is to battle through hardships. Which will ground you like that man never was.
Well, now you're just being a charmer. I don't know if I'm that special.
You are. If only you could see yourself through my eyes. Then you would understand.
Did the fall from the divine plane damage your senses? I fear you are delusional. A prime specimen to try out my new healing magic.
Oh, no, you don't.
What? Ah! Oh, you arse!
Now then, let's get back to practicing.
Okay, so normally I do some sort of lead out. Very well done, as always. Thank you so much, Renara, for the intro.
I was not expecting to be here when that one played. I was expecting it to be last week. I wasn't expecting to be around to have to witness that.
Yeah, I noticed you were hiding a lot. So for those of you that are here live or watching on YouTube, make sure to check out Renara's face while the whole intro is going. It's really interesting.
No.
Welcome to Cole Read, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again to those that are present. Thank you to those that are watching us on YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you for taking a moment and listening to the group. Again, apologies for not being around last week. We had some technical issues, including some, other personal issues that were going on. So thank you again for those that are joining us back. If you have any questions for the group, please feel free to email us, ColdReadthePodcast@gmail.com, or join our Discord, which is always in the description. Feel free to jump in. We do video games. We're always here. If you have any questions or you talk to us directly, please feel free to do so. Come on over. We'd love to have you on board. So now that it's been a two-week delay, let's check in with the group and see how everybody's doing. First off, a belated happy birthday to Renara. Yay! How did everything go?
Enthusiasm.
It was nice. It was good, actually. My birthday's normally during term time, so I'm usually working when it's my birthday, but got to actually go out for a meal and actually, celebrate my birthday for the first time in 5 years. I am now closer to 30 than 20. I don't know how to feel about that. Because, yes, I did the calculations and I was 2 when you started, Paul, voice acting.
Oh, crap. Why would you say that?
I'm going to do it every time. It makes me feel better. No, it was nice. It's okay. I had some interesting stuff voice actor related happen. I got reached out to by someone asking for free work, and used literally the term "alas, I will not. I would not feel comfortable doing something like this for free," and in a very British way, did a very roundabout way of going. And get your stuff together. Yep. And come back to me. But yeah, it was interesting. I also got to do something really nice, and it was it's something that I think quite a few people find a little bit iffy, because people see people asking for these sorts of things and they kind of go, eh. But I saw a tweet from a mother who was reaching out to the voice acting community and asking if anyone from big voice acting areas would be all right to send just a small little voice clip for their daughter's birthday. And it got negative reception a little bit, and I was a little bit miffed considering I work with students, I work with children, and because they put up their whole story about it, and I read it and I went, even if people may have their reservations about certain aspects about this, I'm still gonna do something. I know I'm not like Troy Baker or Jennifer Hale or whatever, but I was just sort of like, if I can do something, just a small little bit of, what's the word, encouragement for a young creative who's feeling like shit, I'm gonna do it. So I did it, and I feel really. It was like I felt really good doing it, and I shared it, and I just tried to get people to sort of see it. But yeah, no, I did. I felt that was the main good thing that I've kind of just sort of. I'm gonna keep that for us. I'm gonna keep that.
You should.
That's mine. Yeah. No. But yeah, that's been my time. I feel a little bit rubbish because I'm definitely not well, but I'm soldiering on, as you do.
Awesome.
There you go.
Well, thanks for being here, Renara. Absolutely appreciate it.
Let's for the world.
Let's get a little closer and check in with Misty. Misty, we haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. How are you?
I was supposed to be a licensed driver by today, but I failed my driver's test yesterday. So,
Yikes, I'm sorry.
What'd you get dinged on?
Apparently, I was just nervous. I haven't driven a car in weeks because the last class I took was almost a month ago. Because I told them that the problem is she just needs more practice. I'm like, I don't have a way to practice actually apart from these classes, so that really complicates things for me. So it's you don't have anybody? I'm like, no, I don't. My aunt, but she has one day off. Sometimes she's busy for the most part, and I don't feel comfortable driving her car. She doesn't feel comfortable with me driving hers, so it's just a big anxiety attacks. It's like no. So it sucks. I'm gonna try to do it again really soon so that I don't have that like long space between driving, and hopefully that will make me feel better. And then apparently I was going below the speed limit in some areas. I didn't really notice it was significant. I tried to keep my eye on that as much as I can, but I don't.
I'm sorry to hear.
I need a car by September, so I'm just like, ah.
Well, don't pressure yourself too much. Yeah.
Breathe.
See, even Renara's.
It's a need. It's
I
a
know.
need. So it's like, oh God, I'm coming on.
I know the stress. I know the fear and the stress. Don't worry.
Well, welcome and thank you for being here. But anything voice acting related, or your life has been too busy?
I've been doing thankfully, kept me afloat. I've done the recordings for that client. For
The YouTube thing.
YouTube videos. Yes, it still kept going, thankfully. And that has helped me. Apart from that, I also, like Renara, I got some, offered, well, not really offered directly. I was messaged by, 2 people, hey, you want to audition for this project? I'm like, I really, unfortunately, at this moment, I really just need paid work because I'm just So I wish I could, but need as much as I can. So apart from that, though, nothing successful.
No worries. Thank you again for being here. Eldurrino, it's been a couple of weeks. How are you, my friend?
I am exhausted, mostly because I decided with my girlfriend to do a 15-mile bike ride after not having ridden a bike in probably over a decade. So, not to sound, or not to create an innuendo or anything, but my ass is killing me.
I know your pain.
Just the insides of my thighs, right where the bike seat is, it's just. Yeah, it's sad. So watching me sit down is quite comical.
Make more noise sitting down than getting up right now.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay. So no, but it was really nice. It's like a trail that follows along this river. So it was super gorgeous. It was such a good day for it too. It wasn't too hot or too cold. So yeah, very enjoyable. And then it ends up in this little tourist town. And I always like walking around there. There's actually a guy there that runs an artisan shop. And I was there last weekend, and we were discussing hot sauces, which I love talking about hot sauces. So yeah, he's like my new friend now. He's from Louisiana, so I just call him Louisiana man.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, it was a good time. Past couple of weeks though, I have really just been trying to focus on projects that I'm currently working on. One of which you will see in a month from today.
Yikes! Okay.
Which that's I'm very excited to show that off. But then I'm also trying to follow up on some things where I've completed the work and just have not heard anything from it. One of which was that DBZ Abridged series. I don't know where that's going. I have the first 2 episodes recorded. I already sent them over. I finished. I got the okay, everything is good on episode 1. Have not been paid for that. Episode 2, they said that they were going to get notes for me 3 weeks ago. That has not come to fruition yet. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I'm still hoping that will go somewhere because they agreed to my rates, and it would be nice to actually be paid for work.
Yeah, totally.
Otherwise, I also was approached 2 days ago, I think 2 days ago, to work on another song with someone.
Oh wow.
Which I'm super excited because I worked Zamoody, and I have a friend named Kenny who writes and puts out music, and he had asked me to do a song with him. And so this other person that approached me listened to that track, and they were like, your vocals are so good. I was just blown away. I would really love if you could do this guest spot on this other song that I'm writing, which is the titular track of the album. I was like, all right, send me whatever you got and we'll just go from there, I guess. So So I listened to it a number of times and sent back my thoughts on it, my questions, and I even suggested, like, I feel like an asshole for doing this sometimes, but I always like to be very constructive when it comes to music, especially when you're building it from the ground up. So I always say, like, hey, it would be really cool if you did this, or you might want to change this because it sounds too much like, another part of the song. And so I always do it with a grain of salt, but I sent it to him anyways, and he was like, I totally agree with everything you just said. So yeah, so I'm pretty excited to see where that goes. Hopefully it'll be another fun bop, if you will, as the kids would say.
As the kids, oh my gosh.
They don't say that anymore.
As the 1950s kids would say? Nice.
Yes, they do.
Gotcha.
They don't.
Drink your water. Thank you, Eldurrino. Appreciate it. Yeah. For me personally, life has been an interesting ride so far. Work has gotten super busy. And I talked to Eldurrino a little bit about this, I've not been in the right headspace to get into the booth. And I think it happens to all of us, where it's just something goes wrong and it just takes a while for you to pick yourself back up. Now, I've got a deadline for a project today for the Star Wars audio comic people that I need to get done. So I will actually be back in the booth before the end of the day to fill in those roles for 2 comics that they need to put out, that they approached me about. I did drop out one of the other free ones, the one that I talked about a couple episodes ago, where they approached me and then they made me audition, and then it's like, I wasn't a fan about the way that the project looks like. So again, alas, unfortunately, I figured it would be easier for me to step away.
Use that word.
I love using
guys.
alas. I don't use it nearly enough, but I love using it when I can.
I think there's going to be a revival of alas in this group, so definitely. Yeah. But yeah,
before the end of this season, we're going to be like very classically spoken.
So we're going to have 2 things. We're going to have alas, you're going to have microwave. So for those of you that don't remember the microwave, make sure you remember where that's the microwave. You weren't here for that episode, Eldurrino. I know you're looking at us. That's just weird. That was
not involved.
That was Ravenmain offering a microwave as a dance prize for a group of kids. So he was going to give them each a microwave, and this is what it ended up being. Is for those of you that are listening, this is my index finger just very lightly wagging, and that is a microwave. Okay, with that note, I'm gonna move over to Paul. Before we get started, Paul, I do like to ask, how has your week been?
Well, you're very kind to ask. Thank you. I've been looking forward to this all week, so thank you for having me on. It was a good week. 2 weeks ago had a COVID-induced vacation, or for Renara, a holiday, and so fortunately, knock on wood, it wasn't too terrible. I was exhausted for 3 days. It took me 3 days to get my energy back. I sounded like death, so I couldn't work. Fortunately, only two of those days were weekdays. So while I sounded awful, 2 of those days were over the weekend. So I only I didn't lose 2 days of work, but I had to reshuffle things. And then by Monday, I was about 80%, 90% Tuesday. And so I'm fully back now. So that's good. I would encourage everybody to get vaccinated, boosted, and wear your mask when appropriate.
Absolutely.
And then work picked back up. Friday, I have a recurring client that booked a live session with me tomorrow. What will be tomorrow, and so that's going to be a 2-hour session, 6 explainer videos, corporate explainer videos. So we're gonna knock through those at a fairly good clip tomorrow. But they've been a great client, and I love working with them. And I know it's going to be an easy session, so I'm excited about that. And of course, here I am. So thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for being here. So Paul, let's get into, because I know Renara mentioned that you've been at this for a long time. So how did you actually get started in your journey to VO?
A voice actor, yeah. Well, it was. It's a bit of a long and winding road. When I was a kid, I actually was a stage actor. So, I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and the only thing to do in the 80s, yes, Renara, you were too when I started. By the way, I think I heard the doorbell. I just ordered new tennis balls for my walker, so thank you for that. So in the 80s in Baltimore, the only thing to do was musicals, and I'm not a natural singer. If you give me 6 weeks and rehearsal and a lot of hand-holding, I can get there, but it doesn't come naturally to me. So I did theater all the way up into college, and I started at college at Towson University. I was the only freshman to make the main stage, and we were doing Chekhov, right? The Three Sisters, deep, dark, heavy, Russian theater, right? And you can do the Three Sisters in probably 2 hours 45 if you have maybe a 15-minute intermission.
Oh my gosh, okay.
It's a long show, no doubt.
Show, yeah.
3.5 hours later, we were getting off stage, and I was, because it was line and emotion.
Oh no!
Line and more emotion. It was folks. Happy hour is going to be over soon, right? So I, it was not fun. It was not a pleasant experience as an actor. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to take a break. And that break from theater ended up lasting 15 years. Wow. In the meantime, I stumbled into a broadcasting class, right? It was Radio 101. And the long story short, I ended up detouring into broadcasting and graduated with a degree in mass communications with a concentration in radio. And then, so that the smart people wouldn't laugh at me, I got a degree in English with a concentration in writing. So one to get a job and one to feel smart. And went to work for a radio station in Baltimore called 98 Rock, which is crazy. That station is still on the air today. It started in 1977 and is still on the air today. And I was there for about 6 years. From there, went to Wilmington, Delaware, did morning drive, did afternoon drive for 8.5 years. I estimate during that time, I probably produced somewhere around 6,000 radio commercials, produced and voiced. But the problem with that is nobody teaches you how to be a voice actor in radio, right? They give you a script, they show you where the sound effects are and where the music library is, and they say, go produce a spot. And you go, okay. But nobody tells you how to read. There's no voice acting at all. And I started to pick up on this, like the stuff that came in from the agencies, right? From either the local agencies or national agencies sounded better. The scripts were entirely different, right? There was acting going on. It wasn't the phone number 4 times, locally owned and operated by, with 6 convenient locations to serve you, right? It was real advertising. And so I started to get enthralled by this and started to dig into it more. And I ended up buying a book and striking up a pen pal relationship with a guy named Sandy Thomas. In the 80s and 90s, you couldn't swing a dead cat in the States without hitting a Sandy Thomas commercial. And Sandy and I had a little pen pal relationship for a bit. He wrote a book. I don't know when the book came out, but I know when I read it, it was in the late 80s and early 90s. It's called So You Want to Be a Voice Actor. And that was one of the first books I read on the topic. And he had Home Depot for a while. I think he had either Hilton or Hyatt. And I apologize to both of those folks because I can't remember which one and their competitors. But that book was influential. And then life happened. I met my wife. We got married. We had this little guy who now is 15 years old and can out-drive his father on the golf course.
Yikes.
So I migrated off of the on-air side of radio and into internet radio for what is now Odyssey, was then Entercom, and became a webmaster for our group. I was in Rochester, New York by this time, and I was a webmaster for our group of 4 or 5 stations. And really kind of got into the internet side, became a digital sales manager, was completely off air. But I always had, from the radio days in Baltimore and Delaware, I had clients, they'd come to me and they'd say, look, you did our radio spot, would you do our cable spot? Right? And they'd throw me a few extra bucks, and I'd do a big fat radio read on the cable spot, and they didn't know any different, and I didn't know any different, and everybody was happy. But I still, I was trying to learn what I could on my own. I didn't even know voice coaches existed then, right? But I would still have clients come to me over the years, and one day I'm sitting there and I'm doing this work and I'm going, I really enjoy this work, right? Like it wasn't about keeping my feet wet in broadcasting anymore. It was really about doing the work that was in front of me, which was kind of getting towards voice acting. I was threateningly close to being a voice actor. So I started digging into it. I said, you know what? I love this work. It brings me joy. Let me try and get better at it. So I started researching and kicking around, and by then the technology had changed quite a bit, right? I still had my studio monitors. I still had my old AKG mic, but it was a rack of equipment I didn't need anymore. All I needed was an audio interface and a computer, and I was back in business. And I think I bought a boom stand.
Right.
Nice.
So the technology had come around quite a bit from the last home studio I had. And I said, let me get some coaching. Let me put together a website. Let me start actually pursuing this work rather than just taking what the universe drops in my lap, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize. I'm a very verbose person, so if I'm
No.
too much,
I love it.
It's fine.
but
Renara appreciates it, I'm sure.
I remember several years ago, I was standing about 8 feet through this wall right here behind my love seat, and I went, wait a minute, hold on a second. Audio production, marketing, sales, mic, at least some sort of mic technique, right? I've voiced a lot of spots. I'm getting some coach. I'm like, hold on. I now understand that I can go get my own work. And that's when the switch flipped, because I knew how to do that, right? I knew sales, right? Because I had spent time in internet radio and helped the salespeople sell internet commercials and everything else. I said, that I can do, right? If I don't have to rely on an agent, if I don't have to rely on some casting site where I've got to audition, 100 times to get a gig, I can go after my own work. I've got some control over my destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a plan together, and I will say this about my plan. It was a 2 to 3 year plan, which I still think is a good guideline. If you're going to go full time, I think it takes 2 to 5 years to really do that in this business. I did it in 9 months. Wow. I don't recommend you do it in 9 months, because here's the thing. All right, so what happened was I'm sitting at my desk one January, and I get an email. I had been asked to do an audiobook by a local, the rights holder was local here in Richmond, and our attorney had actually put us two together. And I had given a quote, and they said, we love you. We think you're perfect for the job, but you're just too expensive. And I'm like, well, that's okay, because what I quoted was, GVAA rates. Mm-hmm. And okay, well, I get this email in my inbox one January. And they said, we've done some more research. We've figured out what you guys really do get paid, and we'd love to have you on the project. Okay, so that comes in. And then in the course of the next 11 days, I kid you not, I booked over $40,000 worth of work. It
Wow.
was the oddest, strangest thing. Like, there was literally just agreements and contracts flying out of my speakers.
That's incredible.
And I looked up 11 days later and went, this is my opportunity. I either go now, or it's going to be another 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Wow.
So I told my boss, I said, here's what's going on. Can I give you 2 weeks? He says, make it a week and have you gotta jump on this.
Aww.
So that's what I did. And I went full time. I was 6 months in. I lost one of my gateway clients. About half of that $40,000 was tied up in one client. It was a series of corporate videos, which is obviously puts me in a vulnerable spot. And I knew that. I worked with them for 6 months. We did an initial line of 50 corporate videos. They were training videos. They would send me 2 or 3 scripts a week. I would send them the invoice. They would pay me within the hour.
Oh, wow.
Within the hour. And life was wonderful. The people that were, they seemed to love the work, and right. And we had a call in July of that year, and they said, we love your work. We're expanding the department here. We've got 4 more lines of videos we need to do. And I still have the quote written down here. The work is virtually endless.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
2 weeks later, they said, the CEO wants a younger guy. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.
Oh.
Painful.
So,
How dare.
So, yes. So, while I did do it in 9 months, I had a few crises early on that I had to manage. So, I describe it like this. It's like an Indiana Jones movie, right? I knew enough to find the biplane and jump in and get it started and get it rolling down the dirt runway. But when I took off, I clipped the landing gear on the trees and I lost a half of a wing on the barn going by. And it took a while to get that sucker level and steady, right? So I fully admit that I jumped too early.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't say that I regret it because it really was an opportunity that I wouldn't have had later.
Right.
And it's not likely one I'm likely to reproduce anytime soon. But I do think that being able to have a system to find your own work is absolutely key in this business. So that was a very long-winded answer to how.
I absolutely love it because I know there's questions kind of like leading around that. So I'm gonna give the floor over to Renara real quick because I know you're already.
I'll go on. Because I didn't even realize there was such thing as like global like rates, like the thing that you talked about in your video. I had no idea those existed, and I looked at them because you linked them in one of your videos, and I went to them and I sort of looked at it and I was like, this is all in dollars. Can those be converted to the local currency for any voice act? Is that the standard all the way around, or is that just because sometimes when people say global, it doesn't always mean global?
So let me pick that apart for you, Renara. What Renara's talking about is the Global Voice Acting Academy, which is an organization headquartered here in the States. The organization is called the Global Voice Acting Academy. However, their rate guide is really the standard for simply North America. You typically the U.S. and Canada, and I don't know how widely it's used in Mexico, to be honest. But U.S. and Canada is the standard for non-union rates.
Okay.
What I would use in Europe and the UK, Renara, would be the Gravy for the Brain rate guide because that is broken down by country. So that would be a better guide for you and your European colleagues. And generally, if you're going to use GVAA, make it for United States and Canadian clients, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I just wanted to pick that apart for people, but it's a pretty long and daunting rate guide, and the reason it's long and daunting is it's based on our union here in the States, which is SAG-AFTRA. So, these are the ways that different genres have been negotiated over time. And the GVA rate guide simplifies in many ways the SAG-AFTRA rate guide, but it is still, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a bit of a slog to sort of pick apart and get through and learn to use. But I send it to clients all the time so that they can see what what pros in the States who are non-union get paid. Sure. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I've got a tiny little thing to attack onto it as well. I looked through it, and a lot of it is radio, TV, and all these things, and a lot of, at the very least, the stuff that I do, which is more character based. You've got a lot of voice actors, non-union voice actors, they set their own rates of like per word, per line. There's not really that much guide on that area of stuff, and it's kind of a free for all. And that's when you get these sort of race to the bottom type stuff. I was just wondering, is there anywhere to look for a bit of guidelines and help on figuring out what would be standard for those sorts of things, or would it be per company? In regards to sort of like, because a lot of it is video games, well, character work comes usually from that sort of thing. So would you expect more from the company to set what they want, or is it up to you?
I don't do a lot of work in video games, and I don't do a lot of work in animation. So I don't have a lot of knowledge in those areas. I do know that the rate guide is not as detailed in those areas as it is in corporate and commercial and other more traditional, we'll say, genres. So I'm at a loss to answer your question there, but I would say that there is some guidance in the rate guide, and even if it gives you a loose thumbnail, you can see what's generally appropriate. From what I understand, just being in the world but not being in that end of the business, there's a lot of indie stuff like anime and animation and video games. You guys are getting asked way more than even we are. Can you work for free? Can you work for low budget? That's not the other thing. So I come from a very sort of corporate background, right? And I'm usually dealing with companies that they can be small, right? But I'm usually not dealing with individual creators.
Okay.
And so I tend to be a little more firm in don't work for free and don't do this and don't do that. But I'm not really in all of those worlds. For my genres, for the genres I work in, I totally believe in that approach. I recognize that I don't know enough to say whether it's appropriate or not in other genres.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of character work, is that something you would ever want to pursue going forward, or is that just kind of is corporate commercialized stuff? Is that more your
So I do some character work. For example, I have a corporate e-learning client that I just did a very long project for the better part of a year, where they one of the audiences that they serve is they teach kids to read online, and they also teach English as a second language. Well, they had one particular project where they came up with it was either 6 or 7 animated mascots, they called them, right? Animated characters for each grade. I think it was K through grade 6.
Right.
And I ended up voicing the grade 5 character, who was this guy Quentin. He was a space alien. And we did about a year of Quentin work. And, you know, he's kind of a surfer dude, right? But it was really cool. But he would teach kids to read. Like, he would conjugate verbs and talk about predicates, right? And so what I learned through that was there was the character part of that, but then there's also, in e-learning, there's the instructional part, where you've got to kind of shave off the edges of the character a little bit to make sure that you're still being clear and comprehensible and everything else. Right. And so I do some character work. I've done a couple of video games, small lines here and there. Not anything to speak of. It's not work that I necessarily chase. I do have a great animation agent. One of my agents is the People Store in Atlanta, and so they do send me quite a bit of animation auditions. And I do take coaching with Everett Oliver, who to me is one of the best animation and video coaches out there. And I started with Everett in preparation for the audition for that corporate e-learning gig, and he tightened me up in a very short amount of time. And so I owe that gig to Everett for helping me get ready.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is in regards to doing jobs, whether it be for like a corporation or like a radio spot, TV spot, is there anything in particular that is just like huge red flag, something that would drive you away from saying yes to a project?
Yeah, it's usually exploitative. We'll call it exploitative rates, right? Now that can come down to one of two things. Either the budget is stupid low, right? It's just not a professional budget, or the budget, when taken in context of the usage, meaning how is this recording going to be used, doesn't add up, right? So there's a big trend now, and it's probably, I don't know whether it's gaining momentum or losing momentum or staying flat. Seems to me it's been about flat, but you'll see and in fact, this is probably gonna be the subject of this week's video on YouTube. You see bad rates all the time, and bad rates can either be just the budget, they can be the terms. For example, things like all usages, all cut downs in perpetuity, right? Yeah. Run. Broadcast stuff, in other words, TV, radio, any online paid ads, including LinkedIn ads, promoted tweets, boosted Facebook ads, right? Anything that's paid to advertise should never be in perpetuity.
Sure.
And the reason is a concept called soft exclusivity, right? If you don't know what that is, let's say that Joe's Cola wants me to do a spot for them, right? It's going to run radio, TV, digital, and they want it to run in perpetuity. And let's say I agree to that. Maybe I've had a stroke. That could happen.
Oh my God.
So I agree to be the voice of Joe's Cola. Now, they may only run those spots for a year or two, right? But I've signed away rights in perpetuity.
Right.
5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, my agents give me an audition for Coca-Cola. They're looking for a new national spot, a new national voice. I can't even audition in good conscience. And the reason is Coke will not want to hire me because I've given in perpetuity rights to Joe's. It's, clients will say to you, well, we're not looking for exclusivity. You may not be, but your competitors down the line will be. And if I do in perpetuity with you, I'm locking myself out of the entire soft drink category for life, right? So that's why broadcast and in perpetuity don't go together. In perpetuity does work for other genres. For example, if you're going to do explainer videos, I've got a session where I'm doing 6 of them tomorrow, right? Those run in perpetuity because they're only going to run on the client's website, maybe organically on their social media, right? So some things can run in perp, some things cannot. You've got to be very careful and educate yourself about the deals that you sign. But typically, to answer your question, exploitative rates, either because of budget or because of terms and usage and all that stuff, there are a bunch of red flags that you need to keep your eyes out for.
Is there anything in particular that really, like, it may not necessarily have anything to do with the general audition, but just things that you pick out that are just a no-go, or is the in perpetuity thing the main?
Well, it's in perpetuity. It could be budget versus usage. In other words, let's say, I don't know. Let's say it's a local radio spot's going to run 13 weeks. That would normally be 15. Let's say $250, right?
Sure.
But you find out they don't put down the term. In other words, they don't tell you how long it's going to run, and you ask, and they want it to run for a year. Well, $250 doesn't add up to a year, right? So you've got to be familiar with all the terms of the deal before you're able to either quote or agree to a budget. Right?
Sure.
And to agree to a budget intelligently, you need as much information as you would have had they asked you for a quote.
Right. No, that makes sense. And I find it interesting that you say that in some cases, in perpetuity is an okay thing. I've the other guests that we've brought on who have had experience with that have always said like it's a no-go almost 100% of the time. So it's very interesting to say that.
And the GVAA rate guide is usually pretty explicit about that.
Sure. But
usually it's broadcast. Anything where you're going to be imaged with another company publicly, right?
Right.
Explainer video is going to run on their website. That stuff isn't as proprietary as stuff that they're paying to place, right? That's what paid placement means. So that's where the soft exclusivity kicks in.
Sure.
So
in other words, Coke, I'm sorry, just to wrap that thought, Coke would not care if I did an explainer video for Joe's Cola, right? But they would care if I did a TV spot for him or a digital spot.
Right.
It's like loyalty. It's a strange sense of loyalty almost in
a sense. It's competition overall.
I think Misty has been blown away.
I mean, if it's just, I don't know, man. If Dr. Pepper ever asked me to do anything exclusive with them, I'd be all for it. Like, that's my brand. Like, I would love to be doing it.
And that's if they're going to, like, I'm sure the actor, and I can't, this is off, I can't recall her last name. The actress Kathy that plays Flo for Progressive.
Right? Oh yes.
She's locked herself out of, Geico, Liberty Mutual, right? But she's getting paid handsomely to be locked out of that entire. She's getting paid for the entire category. So
and she's still doing work. It's crazy.
Yeah, she was in Mad Men. She does a lot of. She's a very good actor.
So most of your work seems to be focused around corporate, around commercial. Do you have any opinions when it comes to the voices.com or the Voices 123? Because they seem to cater to that same group.
They do. I think in general, pay-to-plays and freelancer sites, if we're going to put them in the same bucket, it's the wild, wild west, right? Some clients are very reputable. Some absolutely know what it's like to work with pros. They quote pro budgets. They're easy to work with. They know what they want. But others are not and do not, right? I see just as many garbage rates on the two 800-pound gorillas are Voices 123, or Voice 123 and Voices.com. And they have the lion's share of the work. I do not believe that they have the best interest of the voice actor at heart.
Of course not.
I mean, everything from their structure to their algorithms to everything else does not make voice acting on those platforms a meritocracy. And I believe that voiceover should be, as close as we can get it, a meritocracy.
Sure.
I believe that there are other more reputable pay-to-plays, but they don't have as much work, right? So that presents a dilemma to the voice actor. I do believe overall that we have a very passive industry. And I understand that, right? For decades, the only way to get work was through casting directors and talent agents. But digital media exploded 20 years ago. And what happened was now everybody has the ability to produce videos, right? Now everybody needs voice work. I signed up a student in my program 3 weeks ago who said he got a job from the guy that fixed his brakes. I said, what's that all about? He said, well, the guy does YouTube videos to bring people into the garage, and he asked me if I'd voice some, and we agreed on a rate, and I got a gig.
Yeah.
There you
Well,
go.
you know, I mean, good God, if that doesn't illustrate, right? So there's more work out there for voice actors than there ever has been. So demand is at an all-time high. Yes, supply is at an all-time high because, you know, the pandemic, a lot of people went, well, what in the hell am I going to do if I'm locked in my house? Oh, voiceover. Look at that. I can buy a USB mic on Amazon and I'm off to the races. we got a huge influx of bodies into the business.
Yes.
So, but what we didn't get was a whole influx of trained bodies into the business. And this is a very competitive business. I kind of lost my train of thought.
It's quite all right. Well, and
Someone like me.
one of the reasons I bring it up, like the first video that I watched of yours was the what sites to avoid, and that was like this one of the ones that we watched here. So it's interesting because you have that comparison where you've got your contacts that you're using, that you're leveraging, which is great. But it's like us that want to kind of go into that because we've heard that most of the money is in learning videos, commercials, because that's not the jobs that are mostly sought for, but they have a lot more. The bucket's way bigger, I guess would be the best way of saying it. But my curiosity is what brought you, because you just recently started your YouTube channel. What made you go down that avenue?
So this can be a little bit of a long and winding road too. So like I told you, I've been full time for the last several years, and I've had this sort of, I would see posts on social media, and I would hear anecdotally, right, good people quitting the business, right? And it wasn't always because they weren't talented or they weren't driven or they weren't passionate or they didn't get trained. It's because they found it too hard to find work, right? And so I've had this, I've been noticing this for a long time. And what kind of brought this to a boil for me was last year, I was reading through the Voice Actors of New York City. They publish a survey every year called the State of VO. You can Google it. It's online. And it's, as far as I'm aware, it's the best data we have on what's going on in our business. Last year, they got about 1,250 respondents. Well, if you Google and search, if you LinkedIn search voice actors and similar titles, you get about 26,000 results, right? So that's a pretty good percentage, right? 1,250 out of 26,000. And there were two data points on that survey that leapt out at me. One was that, and it was largely U.S. based. So Renara, I apologize. This is going to be based in dollars. But half of us in the U.S., voice actors, reported making less than $8,000 a year, right? That tells me we've got a lot of part-timers, and that tells me we've probably got a lot of part-timers that would prefer to be full-time, right? 75% of us are making less than $40,000 a year, U.S. There's not a whole lot of places in this country where if you have a family, $40,000 is a comfortable living.
Right.
So not a lot of us are making a lot of money. The second data point was they asked voice actors, how often are you reaching out every day to market your services. And another 75% said less than 3 times a day. So from a business perspective, what business on the earth can you open, talk to 2 people a day, and expect to be successful? Right?
Yeah.
So that tells me our industry is very, very passive, right? So I wanted to get to the bottom of this, and I said, you know what? There's a link between those 2 data points. We're not reaching out, and that's why we're not making any money, right? So I said, let's find out whether this is really true or not. So I took the same tack voice actors of New York City did, and I wanted to collect data, but I didn't want to do a survey because you don't get the stories, you don't get the emotion, the soft tissue, right? So I set out to talk to 50 voice actors over Zoom.
Yeah.
And I ended up talking to almost 70 because as I started digging in, talking to some folks, some people were too new. They didn't have enough of a frame of reference, right? They were either still training or they'd just gotten their demos done or whatever. So I collected data from 55 of those folks. I talked to 69 in total. And there were 3 sort of themes that came out of those chats. One was that money was not the primary driver for most people, right? We all have to eat, sure. But what was driving most people were 2 things that came up over and over: freedom and flexibility, right? People want freedom over how they spend their day, over the kind of work that they do, the kind of people that they work with, the hours that they work, to be able to balance family and parents and kids and faith and family and community and all that grown-up shit that we deal with every day, right? So the freedom and flexibility were number 1, and money was there, but it wasn't the primary driver. Number 2 was that people were telling me, Paul, we're awash in information, right? We've got YouTube, we've got TikTok, we've got blogs and free seminars and webinars and you name it, right? Books we can buy that are affordable. It's like a 5,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, right? Everybody's giving us the pieces, but nobody's telling us how to put it all together. Nobody's saying, hey, moron, start in the corners and work out from there, right? There's a lot of tips and tricks, but not a lot of process. And the third thing was, this old joke about us voice actors being stuck in our tiny little padded rooms talking to ourselves. And then you toss, there you go, Renara. You toss a pandemic in on top of that, right? And we all got squirrely, right? I self-isolate pretty well, right? But man, even I was like, so there's this deep-seated need for connectedness and support and mentoring in our community. So I took all that and what I came up with is a program called the VO Freedom Master Plan, and it's meant to sort of address all 3 of those things. And so it has 3 parts. It has an online curriculum, which we tested in the spring with 25 voice actors to make sure that, okay, what worked for me may not work for anybody else, right? I don't know, right? I've got to get feedback on this thing and figure out where the holes in the cheese are. So we tested it with 25 voice actors who were wonderful about the feedback that they gave. We had formal and informal feedback processes for that. We baked all that into the online curriculum. And then I further partnered with a guy named Paul Walsh. Paul, for the last several years, was the online and distance learning program manager for the entire University of Maryland college system. He's an instructional designer by trade, so he audited all the content, made sure that we brought it up to standards, made sure that what we were teaching was being absorbed on the fly, and so that we've tightened this curriculum up significantly from the live version. The second element addresses this need for connectedness. So it took me about 5 minutes to go, we get more than 3 people in this program. I can't mentor them all, right? I'm only one person. So we've built an online students-only community around that, such that people come in, they learn the program, they make discoveries, trial and error, they adapt it for their own business, and they're able to take that learning and that discovery and that experience and share it with the rest of the group. So the group mentors and supports itself, overseen by me, yes, but now I don't have to be in 72 places at once, right?
Right.
And I don't have to keep giving the same answers to the same questions. And then the third part of that is kind of an extension of number 2, and that is we have weekly group coaching calls with the group. And the reason and the concept behind that is, if one person has a problem or an obstacle or a sticking point or a question, they share it with the group, and then I answer it. We answer it together. Everybody gets the benefit of the answer. So we all learn faster and go further together. And I actually think in this context, group coaching is more powerful than one-on-one coaching for that reason. Because you're not just learning from your obstacles, you're learning from everybody else's too. Right? So the original question, and I'm getting there, I swear, was why the YouTube channel? And the YouTube channel is to help people, not just our student community, but to help people who are struggling with, the more common issues, right? It's less detailed than the program is, sure, but to be able to just try and put good information out into the world that comes from experience, that people can, that newer folks, look, we're all on a spectrum, man. People help me along. There are people way ahead of me. There are people way smarter than me. People way more experienced than me. They've helped me along, and it's my job to help the people that are coming along behind me. Right? So that's the reason for the VO Freedom Master Plan, and that's the reason for the Paul Schmidt Pro YouTube channel.
Wow. And
Excellent.
One of the reasons why we put this together was so we had a network and we had voices and we could bounce off of each other. So I know we appreciate that concept. It's very, very good. If somebody wants to join your program or look into it, where can we get more information?
You can go to VO Freedom Master Plan. Of course, it's a URL, so it's all one word, VOFreedomMasterPlan.com.
Awesome. I'm looking at your link tree. Your link tree is also very open. A lot of information is on there, but it's not like you're advertising yourself. You're making this another venue to find other things, and I absolutely appreciate that. So I just want to.
I think there's a lot. It's the voice actor community is a microcosm of the world at large, right? So we, just like the world at large, we have a lot of marginalized groups, right? Women for a long time found it very hard to work in voiceover, and that's starting to change, and that's, I think, a great thing, especially in areas like promo. Man, there are women doing promo now that are just kicking the shit out of it, and I love it, right? LGBTQ plus community, right, has been marginalized. We now are in a place where white actors are thankfully recognizing that we've taken roles from actors of color for way too long, and that's starting to change, right? Mm-hmm. So I believe that yes, we all do accents. Sure, we do accents, but if you're gonna want somebody for a British role, then you should hire a British actor. Right? Chances are they're probably going to do it better. Certainly, British actors do American accents better than American actors do British accents. I will say that.
That is 1,000% true.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I think we're on a place where we're starting to recognize that there's enough work that we can all get hired for what we do well. Right? I don't have to be everybody. I do have to be a good actor, but I don't have to be everybody. I just have to do what I do very well.
Yeah. Because everyone has a story to tell.
Yeah.
We're coming up on our last couple minutes. I'm going to ask my final questions, group. If you have anything to ask Paul, please feel free. Paul, if you were able to go back to when you first started your journey and give yourself a piece of advice, what advice would you give yourself?
Do your research. Do your research.
I love it that you had it ready.
Yeah, I think because that's, lurk and listen for 6 months before you start because what will happen is over time, you will begin to figure out who the reputable people are, who the non-reputable people are. And sadly, look, again, our community is like the community at large. We have our fair share of snake oil salesmen, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we have our fair share of people who will sell you shortcuts. I got news for you. There aren't a whole lot of shortcuts, right? This, like any business, this business is hard and it's a slog. And like any other, if you love it and you find fulfillment in it, you're never going to work a day in your life, right? But there are plenty enough people that will sell you a promise and take your money, right? I think I try to be very upfront about what I do in my program. my program is not a shortcut. It's not a panacea. It's not a magic pill. You are going to work your ass off. And that's one of the reasons I meet with every single student before you're admitted to the program, because I can't take everybody with a credit card. No. The reason is, if I do that and I get people that don't want to do the work or are not good community members, it's going to poison the well for everybody. Right? So I need to know who's in my program. So you have to apply to get in.
Wow.
Because the culture of that community, if that community fails, the whole program's done, because nobody's going to get the support and the mentoring and the connectedness that they need. Right? Because I can't provide that on my own. I can't. So that's why this thing just isn't like, we don't have 600 people in this program. We don't. But do your research, because there are plenty of people that will say, hey, this, no experience necessary. You can be making 6 figures next year, blah, blah, blah. It's bullshit. Yeah. It's complete unadulterated bullshit. It's hard work. And you do have to think like a business person, which grates a lot of, especially traditional actors, the wrong way, because they feel like they have to be salesy and manipulative and creepy and have an agenda. And that's not what this is about. This is about knowing that we solve a problem for people, knowing that we serve people, and we come from a place of customer service. It's an entirely different ballgame. It's not about convincing or cajoling or manipulating someone into hiring us. It's like, do they have a problem that I can help them solve?
Right.
And so when we get that mindset right, a lot of good things happen, because we're coming from a place of service and not a place of what can I get from this relationship.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So do your research so you educate yourself so you don't get taken. That's my best advice.
I'm assuming that would also be the advice, because somebody approaches us, hey, I want to start voice acting tomorrow. What do you want? Where can I go? What can I do?
So, yeah, I get this question a lot, and I say, share your email. And I've answered this. I answered this question individually for about the first dozen times, and finally I went, wait a minute, I got to save this, because I ended up sending this thing out probably 2 or 3 times a week, some weeks more. But it's a 6-step. It's not a pretty email. It's just, text with some links, but it starts with research. Then we get into coaching. You cannot compete in this business without good, reputable coaching over time. It's, you can't. If you want to be serious about it, and look, I totally get that there's a lot of hobbyists and amateurs that don't ever care to go pro, and that's fine, and I support you in that. And I think if you want to jump on Fiverr or Upwork and do your thing and make a few extra bucks, that's great. But if you ever have an idea,
Misty, come back, Misty.
Come back, Misty.
Sorry,
Okay.
Misty's a Fiverr.
Okay, you just have to understand that. And there's in one of my videos, there's a link to an article where one of the industry pros explains we use Fiverr talent for scratch tracks, knowing we're never going to use them ever again. So you can literally damage your career if you ever intend to go pro by working on the freelancer sites, right? So yes, I think you need to do your research. I think you need to get coaching. You need to learn some marketing skills to be able, and you need a system, because marketing voiceover is just like marketing anything else. The more people you talk to over time, the more work you're going to generate, right? It is a numbers game.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, I think, the biggest factor in success is mindset. It's both having the self-esteem to say, you know what, I'm going to train. If I'm not trained, I will train. If I am trained, I'm going to trust in that training, and I'm going to do good work. I'm going to do good auditions. The great secret to auditioning is not to book the job.
Yeah.
The secret to great auditioning is do a great audition, so that you get the attention of the casting director, and who says, hey, that dude might not be right for this, but that was a good audition. They got my attention, right? Yeah. So mindset is the biggest thing. Also, this business, like any business, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to have to find grit that you didn't know you had. When that client called in August after taking me up to the top of the mountain in July and then dropping me off the cliff, I had to figure it the fuck out real fast, right? And I had a call with one of my dear friends, Brad Highland, who literally talked me off the ledge and said, it's going to be okay, right? You may have to drive Lyft for a while, right? You may have to do some things you don't want to do, but you're going to stay in the game, and this is going to come around for you. And he was absolutely right. And I did. I drove Lyft for a while, and I did what I had to do.
Wow.
You know? So you're going to have to find some grit to make it in this or any business. But I'm telling you, what's on the other side is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing.
All right. Questions from the group before we start signing off?
I'll let Renara or Misty go first.
Well, he answered pretty much all of them.
Works for me.
It's the thing of I have like a whole Word document of all of my questions, and you've literally just sort of like hit every single one that I wrote. So I'm kind of like, I'm good.
Awesome.
I have a really long one, which I don't think I will ask right now because it is super huge. But unless anyone objects for us to going on for a little longer,
You can. I'm good.
You're the one with the timeline, so yeah.
okay.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm good. You can ask away.
It's a little bit. I'm going to say like philosophical slightly because you talked about mindset, and I have I've looked at the Twitter community recently, and I've kind of like that's a lot of where I've kind of learnt about more about the voice acting community, and there's this seemingly thing, I think it's evolved since the influx from 2020 of this sort of preserving the integrity of the artist individually, in the sense of like each person has to earn their right to get where they need to be. It doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to help, but there's this weird thing of, how do I put it? The voice acting community has kind of been split into two separate sections, because you said meritocracy, and I agree with that. I think it's what it should be. But we've got two groups of people at the minute. You've got people who are very solely internally focused on themselves and the business, and kind of insulating themselves to the point at which they won't want to give any information out for fear it's like giving a cheating hand to someone who's not ready. And then you've got the other half of people who are ready and raring and will completely share, like almost overshare stuff to the point where it might not be useful. Like, how far would you agree or disagree with these certain things? And where's the sweet spot, would you reckon? Because I'm worried if that's the way the community's going, because it confuses me, because I'm the type of person who I'd like to help, but also I don't have all the information to help at the minute. So I'm kind of, so in regards to that being how I'm viewing the community at the minute, would you say, one, in your experience, that is kind of where it is, and two, is there anything goods and bad bits out of both sides?
So I think it's a great question. I think what you're kind of what you're talking about is what I see as two different mindsets, right? There's, on one hand, there's a scarcity mindset, right? In other words, I worked hard to figure this information out or learn it, and I don't want to give the store away. Yeah. And then there's an abundance mindset that says there's more than enough work out there. Let's help each other, right? But I think the smart people with the abundance mindset also make it incumbent upon the people that are trying to learn there are no stupid questions, but there are lazy questions. And now we have the world's greatest research machine ever invented literally at the tips of our fingers, right? So it is incumbent, I think, upon newer people to do their research. That's why I think it's the first step, because you don't want to go blazing into a Facebook group with veteran voice actors and go, "Hey guys, what mic should I use?" Right? Because you will have the wrath of God unleashed upon you, because that's been asked 4,000 times. I think you do need to do your research, but I also think that it's incumbent upon all of us, no matter where we are on the spectrum, to pull people. I always think of it as left to right. When you're newer, you're on the left, and as I don't know why I think of it that way, but and we're all trying to move to the right? And it's always incumbent upon, no matter where you are on that spectrum, to reach to the left and try and pull people along with you, right? Because so many people have pulled me along with them, right? Brad Highland's a perfect example, man. I was ready to do some heavy drinking that afternoon, and he pulled me back, and talked me down and said, "Look, here's how you're going." He said, "Look, I know you want to go after clients, Paul, But right now, you've got to go after jobs. You've got to get money in the door. And that means going on the pay-to-plays and just trying to get revenue because you're in an emergency situation. And he was totally right. And that's one way that I think the pay-to-plays can be good.
Gotcha.
To get money in the door quickly-ish because of the volume of auditions available. So.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's essentially why I'm still on Fiverr. I need extra money, any extra money I can get. Because auditioning, it's just auditioning, and I'm not really getting anything for it until I land a job. So that's
I understand that, but remember, it's much easier to do one $300 job than 10 $30 jobs, and much less time. Meaning, when you do that one job, you're now use that time that you would have spent doing the other 9 jobs to find another $300 job. Right? So your time is your most valuable asset, whether you're part-time or whether you're full-time. Because how you spend, you've got the same number of hours in your day as Kari Walgren or J. Michael Collins or Morgan Freeman, right?
Right.
We've all got the same number. That's the one thing that is not scalable. But it is if you know the right tools and the right processes to be able to scale that time, right? I don't get more time. We can only scale what we have.
Love it.
So to get back to your questions, Renara, I think it's a mindset difference. And I think you have to be smart about, if you're new, be respectful of the people that came before you. And yes, ask for help, but make sure that you can look somebody in the eye and say, hey, look, I searched here, I searched there, I searched there. I can't seem to find the answer for this question. People will pour their hearts out to help you, right? As long as they know you've done your due diligence, that's all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Very cool.
Misty, do you have any questions for Paul?
Okay.
I'm okay.
Final question for you, Paul. And I know I said earlier that it's going to be a very casual interview, but I have a very important question to ask you. And that is, what is your favorite pizza topping?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would probably, there's a, be a long answer too. There's a place here in Richmond, Virginia, called PBR, Pizza and Beer Richmond. And they've got these peppers that I've never seen before. They're long and thin and green, and they're a little curved. It looks like if you took a very narrow jalapeno and stretched it out and made it a little bit bumpy.
Is it?
They're not spicy. But they're very flavorful, and I don't know what they're called, but that would be number 1. Number 2 would probably be the jalapeno.
Nice.
Sure.
You have Turtle in chat saying that he's been there, by the way. So
it sounded like you were describing Serranos for a second, but then you said bumpy, and I don't think
a little bit
Serranos
bumpy,
are bumpy. So
like an avocado green.
Green bell pepper.
No, it's very long and thin and sort of triangular.
Does it kind of do that?
Yeah.
And for those of you watching,
in long ways.
For those of you listening in a podcast, Renara was kind of like ovally shaped type of
it's a common thing in England. Well, I say common. It's on vegetarian pizzas quite a lot in England. It's you get the red peppers, like the red sort of. It's the green version of the bell pepper. It's one of those.
We have green bell peppers, Renara, just so you know.
I don't know.
Okay, only because I like.
I'm gonna hide in my drink now.
Rebels.
Yes! I was wondering if that was gonna get in there today.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Paul, I absolutely appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. This is the second guest this month that's pretty much like said, you're a business, and it's like that's definitely the mindset I think that a lot of people need to get into, especially if you want to go from part-time to full-time. So thank you again for coming in and donating your time. Please, everybody, do me a favor, because just as animated as you were here, your YouTube videos are great and they're awesome, and I love all the little anecdotes that you throw in. Go over to it's Paul Schmidt Pro. Go ahead and please give him a follow, give him a sub, because your information. I mean, like Renara sat there and you went through the whole library, so
It's
totally
a pretty small library now, so
yeah.
But I appreciate that.
I got interested. I was like, "How long's he been?" I watched one video, and then we're like, "Oh, I'll see how many he's done." Oh, he's kind of new. Oh, I can watch all of them.
at the beginning, I mentioned if you have any questions, anything you want to talk to us, please feel free to email us, ColdReadthePodcast@gmail.com, ColdReadthePodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to join our Discord too. If you have any questions, or we'd love to listen to your audio and your demo tapes. We give constructive feedback as where we are. We've done it to each other, and we've grown because of it, and we like to offer people that opportunity. So please do me a favor. Send us something over, and we'd love to listen to it live, and we will get back to you. Next intro goes to Mr. Eldurrino. Thank you. Looking forward to that. And
ooh, it's gonna be fun. I won't forget this time, I promise.
But yeah, absolutely. Until next time, I'll offer some words of encouragement. Not offer them. I will pass it on to Renara to offer some words of encouragement.
Oh, I think, to be fair, I don't know. I feel like my words of encouragement might fall a little bit flat because I don't know. I'm having a crisis of are they really helpful? But
what do we always say, Renara? Do the thing.
Okay.
Give the advice.
All right. So one. Oh God, my brain has gone completely flat.
No problem.
Hang on, I'll get there.
Okay.
There. One. Learn to rest. Learn to pause, but never to give up, because the only way you fail is when you give up. That was the one piece of advice that I got given for a very long time. 2, you are beholden to nobody but yourself. As we have said, it's a business. It's a business. You are an entrepreneur, and I think for this one, and again, it kind of resonated with me with this little girl who's a creative, who's being bullied and being told like to give up or you're not good enough or anything like that. The world is gonna kick you, and be it from people, jobs, midlife crises, anything. There's always more good things to come. Like, your journey's not over. It's your path. It's your journey, and you're walking it. So each experience is a pearl of a lesson to string onto the necklace of your legacy.
Love it.
Well said.
Well said.
Microwaves for everybody. I can see it. There we go. Bye, everybody.
I don't know what this means. Drink water.
There it is. Bye, everybody.